Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey. I am a knitwear designer from the southwest of France, and this is a podcast where I chat about all of my knitting projects. Hi. Thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. I hope you are doing well. We are having a very spring themed going on. Colorful shawls, some spring knitting tops project. It's very sunny for the past few days here, so here we are. I am totally jinxing it, and it's probably going to rain for 3 months straight now because I'm all yay spring, so it's going to get back at me for this, and then in May it's going to be 45 degrees Celsius and it's going to be lovely, or not. And yay! Weather podcast, actually, it seems. I'm very chatty today, I'm warning you, because I recorded the French podcast and it's long. I tend to be more efficient in English because I'm not looking for my thoughts as much. So yeah, I have quite a few things to share, so let's go. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below, so if you want to skip any section, you can look at that. I also put links to everything that I talk about, my patterns, which are for sale on various platforms, as well as my Patreon page if you would like to support my work. And for starters, I am wearing one of my design, which is the Pallene sweater, which is tucking back these are my standing jeans, so it's pretty bad idea to be wearing them as I record sitting down. But this is the Pallene sweater. You can see why I say these are standing jeans, which is a fully lace garment, which looks more complicated than it is. The lace repeats are actually fairly short and intuitive, so it does take a while to knit, but it makes this really nice and airy spring summer garment, and it is knitted in fingering weight. I knitted mine in a cotton and linen blend from the Woolly Skein, which is a French dyer. I don't think she has that blend anymore, but it works well with a variety of fingering weight yarns, whether they're plant-based or not. It's knitted bottom up, simple construction. I made it's not really 3/4, is it? Yeah, it kind of is. 3/4 length sleeves, and yeah, this is really nice to wear right now when it's like hot, but then not hot if you're not in the sun. And yeah, I really like it. I have a new design to show you, which is a shawl, but it's actually 3 shawls really, and it is the Boudoir shawl. So I'm going to start with the one that is kind of hard on the eyes, so put your sunglasses on, and voila. Boudoir, which is a shawl that I designed, kind of improvised, last year when I was very sad that I couldn't attend a yarn festival that I had planned to go to in the Knit in Lyon. I unfortunately fell sick like the day before, and so I had to cancel. And I was very grumpy, of course, as this is kind of like the only yarn festival that I can attend. And so I needed something to cheer me up. And I had in my stash a bundle of mini skeins from German dyer Schwedenrot yarn. I apologize for my German pronunciation, you know. And made this shawl. So lots of things. This is an elongated triangle. As you can see, it's quite long and fine. And basically you start at the tip here and you increase until you reach the middle of the length that you want, or until you have used half your yarn. And then you actually start to decrease back to the other point. And so for this version, like I said, I had 3 mini skeins in those beautiful shades of bright pinks and yellows and purple and light grey. And so I used 3 colors for the first half and then switched for the second half. And this is an all over slipped stitch motif, which is very easy to knit, Basically, you're making a row of garter, 2 rows of garter, like a line of garter, and then you're slipping a stitch while you're knitting those sort of little hexagons in stockinette in your contrast colors. So you're only using one color at a time. This is a slip stitch motif. It's fairly easy and intuitive to knit, and it can be made in so many different ways. So as you can see here, I used 3 colors here, and at the center here I switched, used 3 other colors. I made a second version using the same 3 colors throughout. Where's the... There it is. Come on. Using the same 3 colors throughout. This is knit using Filcolana Arweta, which is a basic sock yarn, merino nylon, and I used a light grey as my main color and 2 shades of green as my contrast color. And on this sample you can see a little bit better that there is a center spine, which I personally really like. Basically, if you are switching your main color, this is interesting to do because this way you have 2 lines of the garter, one in the previous color and one in the new color, and it sort of makes 2 perfectly identical triangles. And when you're not changing your main color, you end up with a line. And I like to mark the center like this. I thought this was nice. But some of my testers didn't like it. And I'm very grateful to them for pointing it out to me, because it didn't occur to me that it could be switched so that you don't have this line. So if you're not changing your main color and you don't like this center spine, this double garter stitch here, there is an option in the pattern to remove it. I just wanted to mention it, just in case you would prefer to continue the pattern throughout. It is written in the pattern how to do it, and you can see some of my testers did it when they were using the same main color throughout. So that is my second version, and then I made a third version using only 2 colors. And same thing, I kept the center thing because I like symmetrical things. But yeah, this uses the rusty color is John Arbon Devonia, which is a lovely blend of various sheep, British breeds, including my favorite sheep name, which is the Schwedenrot. Great for playing Scrabbles. And is it Scrabble, the name in English as well? I think so. And the white color is an undyed yarn from Ivy Fibre Co. in her Meadow Base, which is a non-superwash Falkland merino. And yeah, basically what's fun with this is that first you can make it with any type of yarn. So I used fingering weight yarn, and it uses about 500 meters of yarn, 500 to 600 meters of yarn. But since you can make it any size, because you just stop once you have half of your yarn, right? You can actually use any gauge, and so any weight of yarn. If you would like a more wintry version, you can make it in decay, etc. It works well. And color-wise, you can just do whatever you want, because you can essentially use a different color every time for every stripe of the background color. So you can use leftovers. You can also change the main color. So all of my samples have the same main color. I mean, they keep a consistent one. This one, it switches just at the halfway point, but you can actually change the main color as well, if you would like that. There is a tester that made a version with a main color, so the CA, the one that does the slip stitch. It was a variegated color, and it's kind of fun as well. So you can do whatever you want, really. You can use leftovers, or if you're using 50-gram skeins, you know, the type of sock yarns that come in 50-gram balls of yarn. You can pretty much just use 3 of those and go. And 2 or 3 of those, it just however many you want. And yeah, so the shape is long like this. I kind of like it because this is very easy to wear and it's a light spring shawl. So I'm gonna wear this fun colorful one because I really like it. And here it is when it's worn, and you can tighten it more if you like. I could even do a turn like this if you want it to be closer to your neck and be warmer, or you can wear it a little bit more loosely like so if you like. You can tighten those under if you like, etc. And I think what's really fun about this one is that the colors end up being crossed basically. So you have this color under this one and this color under this one, so it actually blends better than you'd think. Right? And yes, so this is how it looks like. This is how the wrong side looks like, just in case. It makes stripes. Here you can see that you are indeed using only one color at a time. And so the border is quite fine. I liked the really fine shape, and so you only have a slip stitch border here. And so it does roll a bit, as you can see, which is intentional, because when I did consider adding an extra border so that it wouldn't roll a bit, it just didn't look good. It kind of clashed with the motif, but just be aware of this. If you really hate when a shawl border is rolling, personally, I think that it sort of prevents it from flipping to the wrong side, you see, because since they're kind of tucked in here, this way it doesn't twist so easily to the wrong side. But if you want to add a border, you can, or what you can do is make sure that you use a yarn that stays flat. And for this, you need to look into yarns that are 2 plies and that are airy and that bloom when they're blocking. So 2-ply yarns that are non-superwash woolen spun. And you can see that the sample that doesn't flip as much as this one, because these are 2-ply non-superwash yarns. This is the one that stays better, see? And the one that curl the most is this one, because this is a 4-ply sock yarn. So it's like very twisty, and it has lots of tension in it, and it sort of tends to roll. So yeah, things to keep in mind if you are considering different color choices. But yeah, this is Boudoir, which so a boudoir is that room adjacent to a bedroom in like a Regency era or whatever. Not Regency, doesn't work so well, I don't think. I'm very bad at history. Like, I'm very interested, but I'm very bad, and I will talk nonsense. But it's also funny because bouder in French means to sort of sulk or pout, basically be pettily upset, which is how I was feeling when I couldn't go to the yarn show, right? I was like grumpy, and it was futile, and I was sick, but I was not so badly sick. So it was okay, but I was still, well, sulking. And yeah, I thought that for some reason boudoir, because it's kind of a fancy word and one that has gone beyond just French-speaking people, I thought that he would have a lot of pattern names, a lot of patterns that would have been named this way, but actually not so much. When I come up with pattern names, I try to check if there's a lot of them already on Ravelry, because if there are, it can be lost in the search and it's not so great. So I was quite surprised when I looked for boudoir that it wasn't used that much. So I ended up keeping it because it was a suggestion for someone as I was knitting it, and I thought it was fitting. So yeah, very versatile pattern, which I hope you will enjoy, and it's now available. And for the pattern release, there is 15% off on Ravelry with the code Boudoir, and probably until Sunday. I believe you're seeing this either on the Thursday or Wednesday. I'm kind of jumbling my podcast release schedule. Yeah, I also have it available on Payhip. And just in case you have never been on my Payhip store, my patterns there are usually more affordable. So they're about 20% cheaper than on Ravelry, because I want to use Payhip as an accessible price point for people who cannot afford the patterns at the full price. Payhip is there for you. And also kind of the opposite route. It's a pay what you want system, so you can in fact change the price if you would like to support me extra. But that is why on Payhip I do not have really sales, because the price is already lower. It's kind of the same, if not cheaper anyway. So yeah, those are the options. The pattern will also be available on Lovecrafts. It should already be there, depending on the delay that Lovecraft puts. I also cannot log into my Lovecraft designer account normally now. Like, I have to go into incognito private window on my browser, because if I try to log in normally, it instantly sends me back to the regular website from which I cannot access the designer platform, and so it bugs me. So it might take a little bit longer for the pattern to appear on Lovecrafts, but this is also another area where you can buy my designs if you would like to do so. So yeah, three little options and many more really for this little shawl. And I have another shawl that I wanted to show you, which I finished recently. And this is a basic garter shawl that I was knitting with an advent calendar that I got last year. So it is now done. And am I showing you that? No. I was looking for my ends of yarn. There's a fold here, ignore it. So I had a half advent calendar from Artemis Yarn, which is a French dyer. And so I had lots of minis, 13 minis, and it was like right in the craze of lots of squishy garter shawls with an I-cord edge, right? And so I kind of wanted to have one as well, because I love to have a shawl just on my desk chair, because when you're sitting at your desk a lot, it can get a bit chilly. So I just like to have this around my shoulders. And at the moment, like I said, it's very sunny, but it's also kind of cold. And so when you're going outside quickly, like, I like to have this because it's not cold enough for me to wear a full-on sweater and things. So this is convenient. And I wanted to have one in simple squishy garter stitch. And I really liked how cheerful all of those colors were. It's really easy to tell what sort of mood I am in depending on the colors that I knit. I would have been a terrible spy, because you can instantly tell how I feel. If I'm knitting bright, cheery colors, it means I'm not doing so great. Whereas when I'm knitting more neutral tones or more darker colors, it means I'm okay. So yeah, I really wanted to knit this beautiful, colorful shawl. And so I didn't follow any patterns, and I'm not gonna make a pattern. Like, it's just very basic. There are a lot of different patterns available that sort of are the same ideas in various shapes. What I just did is I cast it on in I-cord. I continued the I-cord on either side, here and here, and I increased one stitch every right side row until I reached the center, and like half of my yarn, half of this mini, which was the center, the middle mini if you want, I switched and I started decreasing one stitch every right side row until the other point, and then I just joined and bound off in I-cord, and that's what you have. So it sort of makes a gradient of all the half advent colors. This is my favorite color, this brown. I really love it. And this is how it goes. This is my second favorite. This lilac-y. It shows more gray on camera, but it's really like a very light purpley lilac with beautiful speckles of more violet, and some of them are ochre. It's really nice. And all the way into green. So yeah, and the I-cord is like this. So the way I do my I-cords, I do them the easy way because I'm lazy. I just slip 3 stitches with the yarn in front. So at the end of every row, I will put my yarn to the front and I will slip the stitches, 3 stitches. You can do I-cords. Usually it's an odd number of stitches, but I don't think that's a rule. These are just 3 stitches. And on the second row, I will knit them. So slip 3 with yarn in front at the end of every row and knit 3 at the beginning of every row on both sides. And this is how I prefer to make my I-cords. I know that a lot of people have tension issues when it comes to I-cords because they tend to tighten at the edges of the rows. And I think you should be really wary of pulling your yarn too tight at each edge. A lot of people don't like when the edge of a knitting piece is too loose. They think it's ugly. And yeah, but once you block it, it's gone. It's gonna smooth itself out. Whereas if you knit it too tight, the edges, then, well, you're pretty much screwed because it kind of messed up your tension and it's not coherent with the rest of the knitting, especially if you're doing an I-cord because you're slipping stitches. So essentially you have only 1 stitch to cover 2 on your piece. So if you're knitting them too tightly, you're messing up the whole tension. So in my opinion, it's better to have loose edges because they will get fixed when you block. But I know a lot of people tend to have issues with that, and especially if you're binding off in I-cord, that's also a problem, that a lot of people do it too tightly. So there is another way to do an I-cord, which is knit 1, slip 1 with yarn in front, knit 1, and on the way back do the opposite. So slip 1 with yarn in front, knit 1, slip 1 with yarn in front. I don't like doing it like this because I find that it's harder to keep track of. You need to read your I-cord stitches to see, oh, which side am I on now? Am I supposed to knit first or slip first? And I just find it a little bit more confusing to keep track of. But I do notice that it gives me better tension. So if you're someone who's struggling with I-cords, perhaps look into that other method. You're sure to find tutorials for this. So yeah, just a thought about I-cords and edges. But yeah, this is just a very simple shawl. And actually, so I found that when I'm wearing it, the colors blend together pretty nicely, and it's actually fairly wearable. Like, you would think that it would be a bit too rainbowy, but look, if I'm having of course I wouldn't wear like a bright pink, well, I mean, of course, not really. I'm not someone who really cares, to be honest. Sometimes I go out to grocery shopping, and I go grocery shopping at a place where my brother works. My brother is a baker. And so sometimes when he sees me and he looks at how I'm dressed, I'm like, what on earth? Because I don't really care how I'm dressed up, really. I want to wear that sweater. I want to wear those pants. I want to wear those shoes. Do they match? No. Do I care? Also no. But I'm conscious that sometimes it's a bit mishmashed and that it kind of irks some eyes. And I thought that this actually, if the rest of my outfit is neutral, it's pretty cool, in my opinion. That's it. And like I said, spring mood here. Put lipstick, wearing like flowery earrings. So yeah, I have some works in progress to share, and the first one is another second sample of a design which I had shown you in the past. And where is it? It's here. So I have shown you this, I don't think in the previous episode, maybe in the one before, I'm not sure. No, I think it was in the previous one, unclear. And this is one of my design that is currently being test knitted, and it is a v-neck tee with lace on the sandal shoulders, and it's an A-line body. This is a v-neck, like you can see. It's a very low and loose v-neck. This is knitted in Lana Grossa Solo Lino yarn, which is great. It's a blend of linen, viscose and linen, which sort of makes it not as flimsy as pure viscose, but it's still very drapey. And I really like this yarn. I have quite a lot of it. I have this lilac-y color, I have a light grey, and they have new colors recently. Like there's a reddish brown, or who is surprised? I got it. And I ordered it, and because I really like, it's really pleasant to wear. It's gonna be great when it's gonna be hot. It's really so, look at it, so drapey and all. It's not beating my favorite summer yarn yet, which is the Landless Summerside, because I love the drape, but I typically don't wear things so drapey, so it's a bit too much for me on an everyday basis, but it's very pleasant to wear. This is color 52, by the way, that bottle green. I know you all liked it a lot, so I got a lot of questions about which color it was, so this is the one. There's the edging on the armhole. And so as I was knitting this one, I thought, I really want to make a sweater with the full sleeves, so that's what I'm making. And I started it. I am using yarn from a French indie dyer, Madeleine et Philibert. The color is completely wrong. This is a blend of merino, mohair and silk. And I really like those types of yarn with the mohair in, because you get a really nice halo, but it's not so fuzzy, and it's really beautiful. The color is much darker in person. It's more of a eggplant plum color. It shows more pink. It's gonna be a pain to photograph, especially since the lace is really nice, but it doesn't show so well, especially when it's unblocked. So yeah, this is what I have. I have made this so that I could show testers, and the pattern is being test knitted right now. The release is scheduled for early May. And yeah, so this is how it looks on the full sleeve. I have made sleeve decreases here, actually, on the top. I tend to prefer, when there's something going on at the top of the sleeve, I tend to prefer putting the decreases on either side. It makes more sense to me, I don't know why. And because it's essentially a drop shoulder, I think it sort of smoothens the transition here, the curve. And yeah, this is how it looks like. Kept the armhole edge, not hedge, here. And this one is going to be a straight body for me, and I have made the v-neck a little bit higher, because since it's a sweater, I want a little bit more coverage. So this is a good way to show. Is there a hole there? Oh no, it's fine. I thought it was a good way to show that you can pretty much adjust the neckline as you wish, because you're knitting for however long you want. So yeah, when I was knitting on the t-shirt, I mentioned that I was a bit unsure about how to present a pattern with two very different samples, right? The thing is, someone suggested that I could make two different patterns, and the thing is, for me, that's a duplicate, and Ravelry doesn't like duplicates, and well, it depends who you are, but I kind of agree. They want to keep the database clear, and I think that's fair. For me, it's the same design idea initially, and adding sleeves is not enough to make it a different pattern, because like 75% of the instructions are going to be copy-pasted from one another, and I don't think that justifies me making two different patterns. And so yeah, for me, these are options, modifications, but the main, I want to use the word vision, even though it sounds really posh artist vision. But you know what I mean, right? It's the same design idea. And adding sleeves, it's just, sure, I need to grade sleeves, but it's not enough to consider it a completely different pattern. That's how I feel personally. So the thing is, I hope that Ravelry will not be mad at me for using two categories, because it is both a tee and a sweater. So I'll see how that goes. And yeah, maybe my marketing will be confusing because I'm gonna show both things, and there's the fact that one is A-line and one is straight, but it sort of is the design idea, right? To have a multi-purpose item with that lace being the statement, I guess. So that's where I'm at. This is on pause at the moment because I need to work on the design that I'm going to show you next, and afterwards I will finish my sample, and it's going to be very difficult to photograph, but yeah, this is where I'm at on this one. So I have started a new design and I have lots of things to say. I'm afraid I don't have a lot to show because I messed up a bunch of times and I had to restart. But maybe that's actually what's interesting about it, no? So I am making a new design in collaboration with a French brand of yarn, which is Naticea. And and they are focusing on providing yarns made with linen and hemp. And I was very interested in their philosophy and what they were doing, and they contacted me a while ago, and fortunately after some back and forth we managed to set up things to create a pattern together in collaboration. So yeah, I'm very thankful for their flexibility, let's say, so that we could schedule it. Yeah, I'm very grateful that they were able to manage me not being flexible at all in terms of time frame. So yeah, that's nice. And so they have a variety of bases, but I was very interested in this one, which is called Damia. And I have some skein there. They kindly sent me a bunch of skein to make some tests, and I was interested in this one because it's a blend of hemp and cotton. So hemp is very interesting fiber. If you don't know, it's very, very durable. Like, there are traces of hemp fabric that has survived for such a long time. If you go back in time, cotton starts to disintegrate, etc. But hemp remains from very, very long time, and it doesn't require a lot of water to grow. It grows pretty much everywhere. If I understood correctly, it also takes care of its own bad weed. Like, you don't need pesticides. Like, it doesn't really require a lot of added chemicals or water or whatever to manage it. It's fairly easy and a good sustainable option. The thing is, hemp fiber for us hand knitters, it's a bit peculiar. It's very close to linen in the sense that it doesn't have any elasticity. It's very soft and drapey and very durable. It breathes, etc. But yeah, it doesn't have elasticity, and it can be a bit hard on the ends. Like, I personally love knitting with linen and I don't have an issue with it. But I noticed that every time I have been knitting on a pure linen project, and if I wasn't careful, like a couple of times it happened to me that I was a bit too enthusiastic and I was knitting on it a little bit too much and trying to go too fast, and there were cables or twisted stitches and things, and it kind of ended up hurting my hands and my elbows and things. And hemp sort of is the same problem. So it's lovely, but it cannot be suited for everyone, which is why I was interested in this, because this is a blend with cotton, and I was wondering, how does that transform the hemp? Will we get something that is a little bit more malleable? And yeah, it's quite interesting. It's very soft. It's a similar feel to Fruity Bohème, which is a cotton and linen yarn that I have used in the past. But this is much softer, and it sort of is almost squishy. It's really funny. So it has 2 billion plies. Like most plant fibers, you can't really spin a thick thread. So what you do to have a yarn that is holding itself, you spin a lot of fine plies tightly and you put them all together. So you have like these are like 5 plies, and each of the plies is 2, so 10 total. And it makes a round yarn, and yeah, it's interesting. I have swatched a lot in order to get this result, because my idea was to make a raglan t-shirt with a texture on the body, front and back. And I really wanted to use this texture because it is very easy to make. It's actually mostly stockinette, and there's just one row of texture, and I just really like how some textures, it looks like it's all over texture, right? It looks like you did something all over the fabric, but it's actually 3/4 of it is just stockinette, and I really liked the effect. But I needed to tighten my gauge quite substantially. So it's something with plant fibers as well that you have to keep in mind, is that often the weight to meterage or yardage ratio looks odd compared to the gauges that you might reach, because this is 170 meters per 100 grams. So it's more on the worsted end if you look at this, but when you knit it, you need to go tighter. And it's quite common, for example, that sport weight linen are to be knitted in fingering weight gauges, and fingering weight linen, I had to double once to reach an actual fingering weight gauge. So yeah, just another thing with plant fibers, you often want it to be denser, because since it doesn't have the stretch and bounciness of wool, it doesn't fill up space as much, and so you kind of need to tighten things. So I had to go down several needle sizes compared to what I thought initially, so I ended up reaching a gauge of 25 stitches per 10 centimeter, which is what I liked. And so it's kind of a fingering weight gauge, right? And to reach this gauge, I am personally using 3.5 millimeter needles. But this is a peculiar gauge because not only is it like dense, but row-wise, it's 40 rows per 10 centimeter, which is like because of the little cabling that's going on, and also because of the plant fiber effect. So this is why I think it's not going to be a design that is going to be easy to knit with wool because of that gauge. It's gonna be a raglan, so raw gauge is gonna be important, and you don't want the raglan to go too low. So yeah, I had a peculiar gauge, so I had to regrade a raglan from the start, and I wasn't used to those numbers, so I messed up, and I just kept starting and restarting and redoing calculation, and it wouldn't work. So yeah, this is why I have like a first attempt here, which I frogged because the neckline was way too wide compared to what I wanted. And the second thing that was an issue for me is, so this is an easy texture. Like I said, it's only one row of texture and it's 8 stitches. And so you have 4 purls and 4 stitches where you do it 1 by 1 cable. And they're stacked. See, it's always vertically. So it's really easy to keep track of it, maintain your established pattern, right? So I wanted the design to be a good intermediate knit, because you would have to maintain the pattern as you increase on the raglan yourself. I like to make sometimes designs that introduce you to a difficulty in an easier way, and maintaining pattern motifs is something that is maybe more advanced, but if you're doing it with a really basic texture, then it's okay. And that's what I wanted to do, but you have to do it on the raglan increases, and I thought that I could offset the starts of the texture on the front, like not start the texture from the beginning of the front, because the way I do my raglan shapings is that I prefer to start flat. So I start the back of the neck and the shoulders flat, and I knit back and forth a bit, increasing here slowly on the neckline until I want to join, and then I start in the round. And this is how I elevate the back neck for raglans. I prefer to do it like this because it allows me to pick up the neckline, and we'll talk about this later. So the thing is, I thought that I could avoid having to manage the raglan increase, the neck increase, and the texture on the front, because I know that raglans confuse a lot of people. They're a construction that a lot of beginners go to, but if you're someone who has trouble following instructions, if you don't understand what you're supposed to do, which is common for a lot of people, right? Raglans can be confusing. I sometimes get feedback from people who need reassurance because they're trying to get the concept of the raglan, and it can be confusing, and that's totally normal. And some knitters are not comfortable just doing what's written if they don't understand what they're supposed to do. Like, I understand, because if you're like looking at the instruction and they're like, okay, knit X stitches, place a marker, increase, skip the marker, etc., and you have to just do what it says. But if you're unsure about what it is that you're doing, it can be a bit scary, and I totally understand that. And that's something that I find is quite common with raglans, because, well, you kind of have to understand the concept of, okay, I'm increasing along those lines. Sometimes I'm not increasing at the same rate, depending on the part of the body where I am. How do I know which part is which part? If you've never done a raglan, it's confusing. And so I keep trying to refine my raglan instructions, and the thing is, like, everybody has a different brain, and I just can't know in advance for everyone, right? So I tend to go towards the approach of just putting step-by-step exact instruction on what to do. And if you're the type of person who is confused by this and you need more of a verbal explanation of the concept of a raglan, then I expect people to just contact me if they need reassurance, and I will happily do it. That's part of the job, right? But a lot of people get frustrated and and I would like to skip that. So I'm always a bit thinking about how to improve raglan instructions. That's what I'm trying to do. And so I was thinking, okay, I had this in the back of my mind, like, okay, it's a raglan. I know people get confused with raglans. Do I really want to have them maintain a texture pattern and handle the raglan and handle the neck increases? So I couldn't figure out a good way to set up the texture on the front. So I thought, well, I'll just start the texture later on the front. So that's the first, the second attempt that I did, that I still have here. And you can see it's ugly. So this would have been the fronts, see? And you have the texture on the back already, but on the front, it hasn't started yet. And I kept that in stockinette. That's just wrong. Because, so the idea is to have a rather fitted body and flowy sleeves that remain in stockinette. Right. I'll see how flowy they get. But the thing is, the sleeves can be a bit looser with the stockinette because the texture tightens things with the cables. So the sleeves can be loose because it's intentional. But if the beginning of the front is loosey-goosey and then it tightens because of the cable, it made like a little bump. And it wasn't aesthetically beautiful. I hated it. So I throbbed it, and that's what I have. And it took me a while to figure out how to phrase instructions so that you can set up the texture on the front in an easy way. And I'll see what testers think, because I think I've reached a compromise where it's clear enough what you have to do. And then basically, once you've done the first row, then you can just go and maintain the pattern and work on that skill, which is my goal. Like, my goal is to have a design that helps you learn how to maintain a motif, a pattern repeat, and I didn't necessarily want it to be so fiddly with the raglans and the neck increases at the same time. So I think I managed to do it, and this is my current version, and I think the one that is working. I managed to do it and to phrase the instructions and set it up in a way that, you see, this will be the front. This will be the front, like so. And the beginning, you are doing some purls so that then you know, okay, everything from this point, every time I need to do this row, the purls are there. And this way you have a guide. So I think it works. And it makes a smoother neckline here to pick up, because as you can see, this is fairly wide, right? My intention is to tighten this. So the reason I like to start raglans this way is because then I have a bit of wiggle room when I pick up stitches for the collar. And you can pick up more or less stitches depending on how open you want the neckline to remain. Of course, like, there's a limit. Like, I couldn't pick up 1 out of 5 stitches because it would make holes on the pickup line, and it would pleat the fabric in unflattering ways. But there is a margin, and you can pretty much choose, okay, I like how open this is, I want to sort of keep it this way, or you can choose to tighten it a bit by picking up slightly less stitches. So this is what I will do. I have done some raglan increases, so there are 2 parts of the raglans, so I have done a lot of raglan designs and I've experimented a bit, and I find that it's interesting to change how you increase along the raglan lines, right? Because I found that some of my designs where I've experimented, some of them are more suited to people who have a fuller bust, some of them are more suited for people with narrow shoulders, and it depends how you increase, right? Do you increase always at the same rate, or do you increase faster on the body and then faster on the sleeves? Do you space the increases more? So I have a variety of raglans and this one is going to be very straightforward. Basically, there's a subtlety in some sizes. Mostly there are two parts. One where I'm increasing every other round, and then I will increase every fourth round. So I'm almost done with the first part, and once that will be done, I will pick up and make the collar, because I would like to see how it looks. And once I have an actual upper body that looks nice, it's a little bit more motivating, right? And yeah, so I chose this beautiful... Oh, one thing about Natissea, the brand, is that they do have nice colors. I mean by nice colors is that often plant yarns, they can be very pastel and very light color. But she does have pretty saturated colors, like there's this bright pink, there's a really nice burgundy, and well, I ended up choosing just this grayish blue because I didn't have a blue designs planned for this year. So that's what I'm working on. It is, so it is pleasant to knit. It's more pleasant to knit than pure linen or hemp, I found. It does split a bit. However, so when the yarn splits, it's that because of the several numbers of plies, which I talked about, sometimes when you try to take the stitch, there's one ply that's gonna be like, nope, and you're not gonna grab all of it. And this is very annoying because some yarns, when this happens, it will show a lot. It will have some irregular texture and it will look bad and it will be very visible. This does split a bit. However, first I'm getting used to it and now it's not happening as much. And I found that when it did split, especially when I was making the little cables, right? When it did split, I could easily fix it. Because sometimes, actually most of the times with plant yarns, if you lose one ply of the stitch, because the yarn can be so slick, it's gone. Like you'll never fix it. It's very hard to pick up back that very fine ply and put it correctly on the needle in the right angle. It's very difficult and annoying. I'm not having that issue here. On the contrary, I found that yes, sometimes it did split, less so now, I'm getting used to it, but when it did split, I could easily fix it and take the stitch again, and it actually was quite neat. I even did a swatch, so we'll talk about this after. I'm doing a lot of swatches for design submissions at the moment, and I did a swatch with this in lace. I can't show it to you because I'm trying to I'm going to submit it to a design, and if it's selected, well, it kind of has to stay secret for now. But in that lace swatch that I did with the same yarn, there is an SSSK, so a double decrease done over 3 stitches, and it's fiddly, but it was fine with this yarn. Like, it did slow me down a bit, but it's super clean. And I didn't have any problem when it split. I was like, okay, I just redid it properly and it's really nice. So yeah, working good. I'm really looking forward to blocking it. So because I've been, like, this is my second attempt already, this one that I'm frogging. I've been trying it on and it's really pleasant. I really like it. The swatch that I made, that I cannot show you, I know it's annoying. It's fairly big because it's a big lace motif, and so I blocked the swatch, and it has a nice flow. I like it. So I'm really looking forward to blocking the full t-shirt to see how it's going to behave. But it's very pleasant to the touch, and so it's a thicker yarn, right? So it's going to be more of a in between mid-season garment for me. I find I need to make more in-between garments like this, because where I live, a lot of the times I need to be in a t-shirt because it's hot, but it's not hot enough that I can have something sleeveless or very flimsy and fluid and drapey and etc. But it's not cold enough either that I need sleeves. So I kind of need t-shirts that are not super, like this is too summery, for example. Like this will be for summer, not when it's gonna be a heat wave, because then I'm just dying basically. But I need something warmer than this, and I think that this will do the trick nicely. And yeah, so good discovery with this yarn. I'm looking forward to knitting it a little bit more. I have, like I said, she kindly gifted me a bunch of skeins, and so I actually have those 3 colors, which, okay, that looks very stereotypically French from Brittany, right? And I am thinking a shawl would be nice, a summery shawl one day. So they're just sitting there until I get an idea. Yeah, the brand has a variety of other yarns, like pure linen, pure hemp as well. But this cotton and hemp blend is very pleasing to discover. And yeah, this design better work now. This will be my birthday design, actually. So it's for the beginning of June. I'm shoving everything back here. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. I have made progress on some personal projects, but I'm not showing you any because I've made progress, but there's nothing much to say that wouldn't be redundant. So I haven't made that much on it. Mostly because I've been swatching like a madwoman. So there's been submission calls from magazines lately that have really inspired me, which is not always the case. But I have, so there were submission calls at the end of last year, so in December 2022, at the end of December. And I've made a bunch of swatches and I've submitted, and unfortunately none of those were selected by the designs. And now it's happening again. There's new calls that are really inspiring and I have lots of ideas. So again, I'm making a bunch of swatches and trying again. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because it's, of course, when I'm not selected to be in the magazine, I'm a bit bummed because if I'm taking the time to submit, I want it to be included. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's not, it's just fine and pleasant. Of course, there's a little bit of disappointment, but what's really cool about this is that when I'm really inspired by a design call for magazines, so they send out a theme, a brief description of what they're expecting, a mood board, etc. And sometimes I'm really inspired by this. And it just means that I have to develop design ideas. And if they're not selected, bummer, but I do have a bunch of designs that are fairly advanced in their creative stage, right? It means that I'm gonna have the stitch pattern that I want to use. I'm gonna probably know the yarn that I want to use, the gauge, the construction, etc. It's a little bit more advanced a process than when I'm making a pattern myself as an independent release. I'm just like, okay, whatever, it's gonna be kind of that thing, kind of that sort of texture, I'll see later. And I often decide on the details of a design, like as I'm starting it, right at the end. So submitting to magazines allows me to have designs that are pretty fixed, and I can then incorporate them in my independent release schedule, and I already have a little bit more of a prep work ready. And I would like to show you a couple. Well, I need to find a way to attach this a little bit more securely because it's just hooked. So this is a pretty bag from the Blue Rabbit House, the Blue, I don't know her whole Instagram handle. Is there by any chance a label? The Blue Rabbit House, I was right. So this is a pretty bag, and I just like to have it hooked here, but I don't have a good way to attach it so it keeps falling. So I wanted to show you a couple of those design ideas that I plan to release on my own, now that I know that they've not been selected. And so these are planned for like 2024, right? I'm also showing them to you sort of to gauge interest and to have sort of your opinion on them. Like all of my designs for 2023 are pretty much set in stone. It's funny because whenever I chat with the yarn brands, if I'm buying yarn from them and they're asking me if it's for a design, sometimes I will say yes, but it's for like in 2 years or something. And they're telling me, oh, you're so well organized and things. I'm like, no, I just have too many ideas and you're all making too pretty yarns. Yeah. So I don't know if that's organization or just a messy brain. So yeah, these will probably be for next year. But the first one that I wanted to show you is this. So it's sort of this texture that I fiddled with. So it's a seed stitch base, seed stitch, and then you have this sort of like butterfly-like, I think it's this way, butterfly-like things, where you slip stitches with the yarn in front, and then on a subsequent row you pick it up and hook it. I really like this sort of thing. It's something that I've been using for a long time. One of my first shawl designs had a thing like this. You can just arrange this in so many different ways. I find it really interesting. So, this, and I want to make this. So when you're submitting a design, the magazines, they ask for a swatch, a sketch, a description of the design, its construction, its details, etc. So it means that I have a fairly good image of what I want. And this is to be a tunic length sweater. Really, you can make it any length. So you can make a dress, you can make a sweater. It's going to be a split hem because personally, if anything goes past my hips, it needs to be a split hem because if not, it's just not working. And I want it to be very loose and oversized with a mock turtleneck and basically the texture all over like this. And yeah, so that's the plan. I don't know what you think about this little texture. I'm wondering if I should spread it out a little bit more, perhaps. But yeah, I plan to make this I would like to make it in like a worsted weight or Aran weight yarn. I'm looking at a person in particular who watches the podcast and who jokingly asks me to make designs with thicker yarns because she lives in the northern part of France and she's cold. And I'm like, first of all, why? Just come in the south. It's great. It's gonna be 50 degrees Celsius in 2 months. Why wouldn't you like that? But yeah, she really likes thicker yarns. And so yes, I did say I want to make this in worsted Aran weight. But it's kind of contradictory, right? Because I want to make it in thick yarn, so like, yay, it's gonna knit up quickly. And then it's actually seed stitch, so not so much. But yeah, that's an idea that I really like and I would like to make next year. And the second one, it's a little bit more, I'm still deciding stuff because so I love the texture. Here it is. So this is like a diamond shape with garter or this little cables in it, and I really like that. It's very graphic, right? And so initially the idea that I submitted was for a sweater, and the idea was to have a saddle shoulder sweater with the texture on the sleeves and on the front and on the back. This is how it would have looked like, right? I really want to make something out of this texture, but I think I want it to be a cardigan. I think I want it to be an open front cardigan, you know, like sort of my naive cardigan. Servion is another of my designs. It's kind of like a loose open front drop shoulder cardigan. I think that's kind of what I want to do, but then I don't know how to position the texture, because the thing is, if I keep the saddle shoulder and then I put the texture down the front here and down the back, there's going to be a weird join, and I don't know that it would, because it's quite big, it's quite a large thing, and I don't know that it would be possible to grade it so that they would fit well, the texture here, and work well in all the sizes that I would like to grade for. So I'm thinking I can skip the saddle shoulder and have the texture go on the front, on the back, and have it join here in a good way. and then have it on the sleeves as well, but starting at the drop here. Or not have it on the sleeves at all. Or if I want the saddle shoulder, I'm afraid it needs to only be on the saddle shoulder. But I would really like it to be on the body more. So yeah, this is still in the thought process. It would be for later in 2024, so still thinking about it. But yeah, so these are some examples of designs that have not been selected by magazines, but that probably make an appearance as individual release in the future. And yeah, I'm having lots of ideas for the current submission calls, so yeah, we'll see if any of them get selected, and if not, same thing. they might creep their way into my schedule. Especially the lace thing that I was talking to you about. I really like it, and I think if it's not selected, I will probably switch it in this year, because it's going to be quick to knit and I really like it. Not that I don't like those, but they need a little bit more time and thought process because they're more winter knits. Yeah, so that's it. That was a long episode. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, let me know what you think about those, especially those last designs ideas. If you have any comments or suggestions, things that you would like. If you think that they should be done in a certain way, let me know. And yeah, have a lovely rest of the day, evening, whenever you're watching this episode. And I will see you next time. Bye!